Every great magic trick consists of 3 acts. The first act is called the pledge. The magician shows you something ordinary, but of course, it probably isn't. The second act is called the turn.
He's obsessed with discovering your method.
The magician makes this ordinary something do something extraordinary. Now you're looking for the secret, but you won't find it. That's why there's a third act called
The Crooked Table Podcast, where we discuss the world of film from a fresh angle. And now your host, Robert Yanis Jr.
Welcome to the Crooked Table Podcast. This is Rob. On this show, we democratize the film criticism conversation by bringing on fans and critics alike to dig into their personal connection to a current or classic release. But April Fools, this time we're not doing that. This time it's more or less an April 1st free-for-all. And who better to come on the show and act a fool with me than the famous Ashley Grant. Welcome back to the show.
I resemble that.
Wait, the April part, the fool part, the famous part? There's a lot of adjectives that just got thrown out.
All of the above.
So you were on here last, I think Fight Club was the last time we did. That was like 9 months ago, but feels like about 15 years considering everything that's happening right now. How are, for the people that are listening and are happy to have you back on the show, how are you coping with the world right now?
Just staying at home and washing my hands. And of course, washing my hands to the point that I need some moisturizer. But other than that, doing pretty well.
Yeah. Good luck finding any hygiene or toiletry or any kind of personal products in stores.
Well, luckily I went to Bath and Body Works and got one of their 7 for $27 or whatever it is. I got a crap ton of bottles. So I'm good on moisturizer, but don't ask me about anything related to toilet paper or hand sanitizer.
Yeah, seriously. I was at the store this morning. I made a rare outside of our house trek to the grocery store in the morning when it was less crowded. So I could, have a couple of meter sticks out in front of me to make sure no one was within coughing distance or spitting to any kind of droplets, basically. And yeah, it was completely cleaned out, totally empty. It's a little scary because in some regards, it does feel like a little bit of a pre-apocalypse, not a post-apocalypse, but the flashback in movies like I Am Legend or 28 Days Later, where you're like, oh, this is when everything was going kind of okay, but starting to turn. And it feels like we're living in that time a little bit right now.
Yeah, it is definitely a little bit eerie. And I mean, it's insane the way that people are hoarding supplies and that everything is empty on the shelves, like you said. I mean, my husband even went to Sam's Club this morning and he was there, 30 minutes before they opened and they already had a line wrapped around the building. Yeah. So it's pretty insane out there.
Yeah, it is. It is. But we encourage people, stop hoarding stuff, just buy what you need. The stores are restocking and eventually, Amazon will not take 3 weeks to get you an essential product. And everything will sort of level out. We'll see. Obviously, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But, luckily for people like you and I, Ashley, we're working remote anyway. So we just see a little less of the world, but not complete night and day like it is for a lot of people.
Yeah, but I miss actually complaining about being around people right now.
I do too. And I'm as introverted as can be. But even I'm I miss people and places, and that's not normally my my personality type. I think I mostly miss going to Starbucks and sitting there inside, and I miss going to movies and things like that. We used to go out to eat a lot too. Now it's just pick up, delivery, that kind of thing every once in a while, which is not nearly as much fun. Even Kai and my daughter are even she's like, I don't want to go home. I want to go out somewhere. I'm like, I know, honey, nothing's open. It's just the way it is right now.
Yeah, it's insane. I have cooked more meals and washed more dishes than I think I ever have in my entire life.
Oh yeah, totally. So, you also had something else going on that's been keeping you busy. So tell people, I hear on the interwebs, you have a new podcast venture coming up.
Yes, I've been talking about launching a show forever, and I thought, what better time than to go ahead and do something that requires I stay at home even longer. So yes, I am finally launching my own show. Supposedly, we'll see how it goes. I've at least got one episode recorded. I don't know if it's going to turn into a big thing or if this is a one and done and then I turn into a hermit, but we'll see.
Well, so what was as of this recording, according to what you told me right before we started recording, your first pilot episode will be up. So if people want to listen to that, do you want to tell people the name of the show, the general premise, and then, how did the first recording go?
Sure. The show's called The Bloggy Friends Show, and basically it's going to be a celebration of the coolest things on the blogosphere. Everything from what happens after you launch. I don't want to talk about how to launch a blog. There's plenty of information on that, but it's everything about after you launch, like how the latest news can impact your blog revenue and your business, celebrating the amazing things that people are doing online already. The goal is to inspire, educate, and connect with people that are already in the business and trying to make it a business. And so we'll see what happens.
I think that's good though, because there's a million, as you know, a million podcasts. There's a million movie podcasts. I don't know why I started this one, to be honest. April Fools. I love this podcast, but I don't want people to be like, wow, he's talking down to us. But I like that you're focusing on that niche as far as, bloggers is concerned, but also having a little more of a broader appeal to people just wanting to know what bloggers do, what the highlights of the blogosphere are, and things out there. I think there's real potential there, and you have obviously a knack for this. That's the reason this is your third time on here. So you have a lot of personality and a lot to say about blogging specifically. So I think that listeners definitely need to go and wherever you're listening to Crooked Table Podcast, go and find the Bloggy Friends and support the famous Ashley Grant.
Yeah, it's bloggyfriends.com. And I'm planning on putting it on the YouTubes as well, but we'll see how it goes. I'm honestly very nervous, but at Podcast Movement, one of the things that kept being said is you've got to start ugly. Like, just start anyway. Everybody's going to hate their first episode anyway. So you might as well just go ahead and get out there and start learning and seeing, what you're doing wrong, what your audience can connect with, and kind of just go from there. So I'm powering through the fear and going to try it anyway. And if anything goes wrong with it, I figure since it's launching on April 1st, if everyone hates it, I'll just say April Fools and it wasn't real anyway.
Yeah, you can't. Andy Kaufman, that like, nope, not really, just performance art.
This was a whole joke. Thank you so much.
I'm really committed to the bit. Yeah.
And be sure to tip your waitress.
I will tell you, once you get to the point where you start having guests and the like, obviously I'm throwing my fedora in the ring, but also make sure that because what really has tripped me up, as listeners can go back and listen to some of the episodes in our archive, even some more recent than I would like to admit. Watch when you start using Skype. Make sure you always have your audio settings correct, because I've had a lot where I've recorded where my audio is picking up from my computer and not my mic, and therefore it sounds not so great. So there's a lot. It's the little technical things that will trip you up, I've noticed.
Valuable advice. And P.S., you mentioned this is only my third time. Well, April Fools again. This is my fourth time on your show.
Is this really? What was Fight Club and Confidence, this one, and then was there another one I missed?
There was another one, but it was so long ago, I honestly can't even remember what we talked about.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, it was way back of this, but we did it more than 3 times.
Nice. Yeah, I gotta look at this. Yeah. So we were talking about doing, I think it came up on the last time you were on Fight Club or around there. One of the previous episodes. One of the apparently 3 previous episodes. So we were talking about doing an April Fool's episode. So what is it specifically, about April Fool's that kind of intrigues you? What are your thoughts on this unofficial holiday, as it were?
I hate April Fool's Day. Okay, let's call it like it is. I've hated April Fool's Day ever since when I was like in high school, and our local radio station said that NSYNC died. And at the time, I was a massive fan of, NSYNC. And so when they shared this news that all the members had died in a plane crash, I was freaking out. I was so upset and so bent out of shape. And it wasn't until like an hour later that they're like, oh, just kidding, April Fools. And ever since that time, I was like, I hate April Fools, because those kinds of jokes and those kinds of things, like anybody who makes it a really sinister holiday, I want to punch them in the face. So that's why I prefer, like, kind of transitioning into what we actually are talking about today. I prefer illusions over mean pranks.
Yeah, I don't like mean-spiritedness in general, or anything that comes across as shocking or jarring. In movies, it depends. I like thrillers and horror movies and things like that. That's different. But something that's coming like in your face, like messing with people's lives. Like, oh, this person's got cancer. Nope, just playing. I'm like, that's not funny. You don't joke about that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not funny at all. And
No,
it's like if it's gonna make someone mad, like to the point that they're like, I'm boycotting this show, then what the hell was the point? Like, why are we even trying to pass this off as something funny?
Right, exactly. And as a writer, who's into entertainment, my big exposure to April Fool's Day is usually online, where every entertainment site posts like a ridiculous story, like they're rebooting Lost or something really out of left field. And even that kind of frustrates me, because I always fall for it at least once or twice. Where I'm like, what's happening? And then you click into it and it's just, an April Fool's graphic. What are your thoughts about those kinds of things? Do you find them fun, or you're like, why are you messing with me?
I mean, some of them are fun. Like whenever Chick-fil-A did the announcement that they were going to start serving cheeseburgers.
That was funny.
That one was funny, but like some of the ones that are just believable enough that you're afraid that it is not a joke, that's the ones I can't stand.
Right. So do you feel like it's at all sort of a leap from pranks to magic illusions? Like how did you get there from one concept to the other? Because initially when you brought that up, I was thinking pranks, that's a little bit different than illusions, but how do you connect the two for people that are like, well, that doesn't really seem April Fool's-ish?
Well, to me, I mean, the whole point of a prank is to fool someone.
Right.
So an illusion is fooling someone. You're making someone believe something that's not true. So if we're pulling a rabbit out of a hat or making the bunny disappear, you're being pranked into believing that what your eyes are seeing is legit.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I think the difference too is also that with illusions, people are in on it. You know what I mean? You're not trying to You're trying to amaze someone by, look at what I'm going to do, something that you're not going to believe is real right in front of you, as opposed to I'm going to pull off some random prank behind your back and you're not going to understand it's a prank until afterwards. I think that's part of it too. It's the inclusivity of an illusion or a magic trick, is that you go to a magic show or you watch a film about magic, which we'll talk about some of those in a minute here. You go to it expecting for the person on stage to try and fool you, as opposed to having the wool pulled over your eyes.
Absolutely. And I love the way you put that the audience is in on it, in the respect that they went into it willingly. The pranks where you're not going into it willingly, I can't stand those.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That makes sense. So we wanted to talk about, as obviously this is a film podcast, we wanted to talk about some of our favorite movies about magic, or we in our chat about this episode, we broadened it out a little more to include witches as well. So I guess I'll let you throw out your first one, and then we'll kind of take the conversation from there. Well,
in part because there was a special over the weekend. I got to start with Now You See Me. I absolutely love the Now You See Me 1 and 2. Can't stand the fact that they didn't have Isla Fisher in number 2, but whatever, she had to go and have a baby or whatever.
Lame.
But yeah, I love those two movies. Absolutely. Those are like two of my favorites for illusion movies.
Does it frustrate you at all that the heavy use of CG in those movies, specifically, I haven't actually seen the second one, but specifically in the first one, a lot of those illusions, there's like a lot of CG involved, and from what I understand, they could have pulled that off practically, and I feel like it undermines the amazement factor of it a little bit.
Oh, whatever. I loved it anyway.
Fair enough.
I enjoyed it because, I mean, the fact that you had to think about how they could possibly do it
right.
legit made it more fun for me. But actually getting to see all of the elements come to life, even if they weren't real, that pulled me into the illusion, man.
Plus, it's also just a fun mashup of genres too. It's the magic movie and the heist movie kind of put together. It's an Ocean's 11 but with card tricks and stuff.
Right, and you already know based on our confidence episode that I love anything heist related.
Yeah, there's a theme here happening, exactly. Plus, both Fight Club and Now You See Me have very memorable and notable twists.
Yes,
as well.
I swear, I think I was a criminal in another life.
That's true.
That's for another story, though. Another episode.
Well, no, now you opened it up. No, I'm just kidding.
That's funny.
So what about the sequel? What's going on with Now You See Me 2? Because like I said, I haven't seen that one. I know Harry Potter himself is in it. And that's
yes, he actually is. And we're going to be talking about Harry Potter.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. I didn't even realize that. Like, duh, of course he's in it. Well, Now You See Me 2 is kind of a continuation of Now You See Me 1. It's really not as good as the first. So if you enjoyed number 1 and you don't like the fact that Isla Fisher is not in number 2, just don't see it. But it's just a continuation of the story. We learn more about the characters being part of the Eye. Are you familiar with? Hold on, sorry, spoiler alert. In Now You See Me 1, the goal is for the four magicians to get into the Eye, which is this like exclusive elitist club of like the best magicians in the world, effectively. And so Now You See Me 2 is the continuation of that, where they're in the Eye now, and now they're executing a mission for the Eye, and they get swooped up into a situation where they're tricked into helping Daniel Radcliffe's character do a different type of heist.
Okay, intriguing. So
Yeah.
you said there was a deal on this on Amazon, right? For I don't know if it's still going on. It might be over now.
No,
but
it's actually not anymore. I already looked. I was trying to rent it again because I wanted to watch it again today. It's just so I could be better prepared. But oh well, we're just gonna have to go with the fact that I watched it over the weekend. But yeah, the deal is over. But it was 99 cents to watch it, and so I got 1 and 2 and just kind of binged because what else are we gonna do? We couldn't exactly go out over the weekend.
Oh, I know. God, it's rough. So for my first choice, obviously the first one, I actually did a little bit of, research or Googling, really, of just being like, what are the magic movies out there? Were there any ones that I'm missing? And multiple lists had The Prestige at number 1. And I was already, obviously, that was one of the first ones I thought of, being a Christopher Nolan fan and a fan of the actors in that movie, Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman. And what I think makes that movie so interesting is that it's structured like a magic trick. They have
Absolutely.
the turn, they have I forget what all the steps are, but there's three parts to the magic trick, and there's 3 parts to the movie, and it has that twist at the end, kind of like Now You See Me, in that, well, I'm not going to go into the twist, but that really changes the perception of the entire film and makes you have to go back and watch it a second time or see the illusion and performed again, knowing how way it's done to understand it. And it's actually something I haven't seen as much as I would like. And I think that's because it is not necessarily challenging per se, but because it is structured like a magic trick, you have to be like present. You have to pay attention. You have to it just kind of requires all your attention. You can't just casually watch really The Prestige, which is why the last time Kai and I tried to watch it was when our daughter was really young. And we were just not in the mindset. We were sleep deprived and all that. So we were not in the mindset to give that movie our full attention or have the energy to think and pay attention to what was happening. But just really great performances. And I think a lot of people actually consider that among Nolan's best films and one of his most underrated ones, coming as it did between the first and second Batman movies. So what are your thoughts on The Prestige?
I absolutely loved that movie. I really did. And seeing Hugh Jackman in the character he was, I mean, he was almost part bad guy, part good guy.
Yeah.
And it was just the way that the whole story developed, like it was humorous, and yet like some parts of it were humorous. Some of it was gut wrenching. Some of it was heartbreaking. Some of it was, who's going to figure out what? And it's like it kept you so gripped that I totally get what you were saying, that if you're not paying attention to it from the beginning to the end, you're like, wait, what did I just miss?
Right.
And I thought it was acted out really well. And I do wish I had seen it again before talking about it, but it was a really great film. I absolutely loved it.
It's also one of those too that it's really almost as much about obsession as it and revenge and like all these really like fascinating dark themes as much as it is about magic. The magic is sort of the world of, and it's a period piece as well, which is always fun to watch.
Yes.
The world of magic and illusion and the showmanship involved and all that is really just kind of, in a way, set dressing for these two men kind of locked into this rivalry and their obsession, the way they kind of almost destroy each other in some ways. And I think that's an interesting dynamic. Like, people get so dead set on vengeance that it consumes them completely. And there's actually another Hugh Jackman that sort of explores that called Prisoners that I highly recommend people check out. That's really actually one of his best performances, in my opinion. So what did you have for your next pick?
I know I said that I wanted to talk about Prestige, Oh yeah, The Illusionist. Oh my goodness, how did of all movies to not remember Edward Norton in The Illusionist? Paul Giamatti in it as well. Another great film, another period piece. Jessica Biel's in it, and it's a great story. I mean, another one about it's literally called The Illusionist, but pulling an illusion that is just so far-fetched, but yet you get it as soon as you get to the end of the movie. Like, how much do you want me to go into it? Because I know I kind of gave a little bit of a spoiler right now you see me, but I mean, this was a 2006 film, so is it really called a spoiler at that point?
Not really. Not on this podcast, at least. Go for it.
Oh, God. All right. So basically, it's turn of the century Vienna. I'm just going to read you the fandom plot of it. Turn of the century Vienna, a magician uses his abilities to secure the love of a woman far above his social standing. So we have Edward Norton. He is the illusionist, and he's in love with someone that's completely out of his league. And so basically, the only way that he can have her is to fake her death. And that's how he gets her, is he makes it look like she is dead, and then they run away together.
Sounds like totally normal courtship. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's funny.
No, I actually did see that back in the day, and I know it's often sort of coupled with The Prestige because they came out, I think, like either the same year or I think the same year. So it's one of those like twin movie things, like the Dante's Peak and Volcano, that a lot of people are. It's like The Prestige and The Illusionist came out like within.
Or White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen.
Right. Yeah, that's a whole other topic of conversation. Bugs Life and Ants, Armageddon, Deep Impact. Those, yeah, obviously.
Oh my goodness! Next episode for Ashley to be on. I'm just kidding.
There you go. Well, we have a habit of sort of teasing your next episode.
They were both released in 2006.
Yeah, see,
How about that?
I thought so. Yeah, so I actually saw that when it came on. I guess it was DVD still at that point. When they came on DVD, and I remember sort of enjoying it, but not as much as The Prestige. But I actually haven't seen it since then, so that's definitely due for a revisit.
And I've always loved Paul Giamatti. Ever since I saw him in Sideways, I'm like, okay, just about anything that he's in, I want to give it a shot because I love him as an actor.
Right, he's basically the antagonist of that movie, isn't he?
I thought he was the detective.
Yeah, but he's like the villain, since Edward Norton's kind of the main character, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's like one of the villains. The other villain, of course, being the person that Jessica Biel's character is married to, that we're trying to get her away from.
Right. Against her will, or I forget now.
Oh my goodness, I'm pretty sure it was against her will.
Wow. Hashtag me too for The Illusionist. Jesus.
What?
I said hashtag me too for The Illusionist.
Seriously, yeah. Because, I mean, come on, if you don't want to be with someone, can't you just let them go? Do you have to try to kill them?
That's true. That's true. Even going into magic and stuff, obviously, even the genie from Aladdin is like, I can't make anyone fall in love with anyone else. So, I mean, you think Edward Norton would know that, isn't it? It's like his magical code, or isn't there like a code of ethics for wizards or something? I don't know.
Well, at least in this case, Jessica Biel actually did like Edward Norton, wanted to be with him.
Or was that a spell? We don't even know. See, everything's cast into doubt. April Fools. Maybe she wasn't. Changes the way you look at the movie now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. Thanks a lot.
Sorry, I ruined it. Maybe this one will help. So I actually, in my research, came across this another movie about magic that I didn't initially sort of think about as a magic movie, but they had included it in there. And after considering it for a minute, I was like, I guess it kind of is about magic. So the movie is from 2011, 12, is Martin Scorsese's Hugo, which is kind of about magic because 2011, because the main character, not the main character, but there's a character in it played by Ben Kingsley, who is a magician. He's like a kind of a street magician in the movie. And it's revealed throughout the course of the film. It's sort of set up as a mystery that the little boy Hugo discovers that he was this famous movie director back in the day. So it's really kind of about how he was a magician, Ben Kingsley's character, and then turned that magic onto film, and it's really kind of about the magic of movies in a way. And, Martin Scorsese being such a tremendous film historian, it kind of, dovetails into some of that and his own attitude towards early cinema. And that character that Ben Kingsley plays was a real person. So it's based in some sort of fact. But I thought that was a kind of an interesting way of looking at that movie. I wouldn't necessarily have thought of it as a movie about magic, but it is kind of about a magician who sees cinema as the ultimate magic trick and sort of shifts his career into that. and then kind of, his career falls. Eventually, it's set decades after his heyday, and it's, I guess, kind of about him being recognized for his contributions to the art form and that kind of thing. But that's a really interesting, Oscar-winning movie that if people haven't seen, I would recommend going to see that. I know last year, or was this year? I guess it was last year. It feels like the last month has been about 7 years. Last year, when Martin Scorsese's made that, the comment about Marvel movies being like theme park rides, which I don't necessarily agree with. I mean, I understand to a certain degree his point. A lot of people, Marvel fanboys, were just kind of throwing in his face, well, you'd make his mobster movies, and he doesn't really. He does a lot of other things besides that. So people that are sort of giving Martin Scorsese short shrift, I would recommend them check out Hugo from 2011. I think it used to be on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's streaming anymore. Ashley, is that a film that you have ever seen or sounds interesting or not?
I was just adding it to my cart. I have not seen that film, but it actually sounds really good. But the way that you were describing it, you put up a really good point. Isn't every movie we've ever seen an illusion? It takes us apart from the real world and immerses us into a new space. We get 2 to 2.5 hours just completely away from the real world, and we just get to enjoy the magic of the film.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And that's why I think Hugo really kind of crystallizes it, because it's a big, a big movie. It was released in 3D. It costs according to Wikipedia, which obviously is not the most reliable source, but $150 million and up. So it's a big spectacle movie about the power of big spectacle movies. So it's kind of very meta in that way. And yes, it is streaming on Netflix for people that want to check that out.
So you go to Netflix and watch it.
Yeah, so go to Netflix and watch Hugo, please.
You go right now. You go to Netflix after you finish this episode.
you go to Hugo. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so that's a good point. I mean, even documentaries to a degree. This weekend, everybody's talking about Tiger King this past weekend on Netflix, which I haven't seen because I'm not as much of a TV person. And as I mentioned, I have a 3-year-old, so I don't have a lot of time to watch as much as I would like. That is a kind of quasi docu series, and even that is an illusion to a degree, because you're getting the story that the filmmaker wants to tell you, regardless of how much of it is true. Things are being framed a certain way, so even that has a level of illusion. As well. If
you ask Carol Baskin, she'll tell you it was an April Fool's joke, because she thought she was being interviewed to talk about one thing, and then they painted her as a person who fed her husband to the tigers.
Right. I heard about that. So have you watched this, or are you just reading about
Absolutely not. Not yet, anyway. I haven't quite reached that level of quarantine where I'm that desperate. Not yet.
Well, it's also, it's like with all the Netflix stuff, and now we're going on a little bit of a tangent, but that's what we do on this podcast sometimes.
Yes.
That's why, as I was telling you before the recording, we usually aim for an hour, and it always goes over just because random stuff comes up. It's just like every week there's something different that everybody's talking about, and it's exhausting to just keep up with what everybody else is watching. I wouldn't, if I did that, I wouldn't have the time to watch the things that I actually wanted to watch. So it's just like, it feels like a vicious cycle of, if you get caught up in watching the show or movie of the moment, as opposed to following your own interests, it's like you just won't have a life, and I guess quarantine gives you an opportunity to do that. But, even now at this point, I just did an episode on 8½, which is an Italian film from 1963, really like one of the most acclaimed movies ever made that I never had seen. So I'd rather catch up with more movies like that than watch Tiger King. But I am kind of curious about the story behind it. So I guess it's worth at least a Wikipedia dive after this episode or something.
Yeah, I don't know how willing I am to jump into that one, especially since right now my current binge series that I'm obsessed with right now is The Mentalist.
Oh, nice. Isn't there like a bazillion seasons of that too?
There's 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, Hugo. People check out Hugo on Netflix. You go to Netflix. And Ashley, do you have another choice?
Well, if we're starting to talk about, more magic and we did mention witches, I have to bring up The Craft because I love the glamour spell that they do in The Craft, which is basically an illusion, a prank where they change hair color or they change their entire body. I mean, we have the scene in The Craft. If you're not familiar with the movie The Craft, it's about four women who are witches. They come together to form a coven. They're in high school, and but they're much older than your average high school girls, apparently, because come on, they were like in their 20s when they filmed this, for crying out loud.
One of the classic 25-year-olds playing 17.
Right. What was it? Olivia Newton-John was like almost 40 when she played 17-year-old Sandy. Come on. Right. But anyway, so they're in high school. They're witches that are in a coven together. And whenever they are starting to play around with magic and learn about the different spells that they can do, one of the spells is called the glamour spell. And there's a scene where Nancy, who's supposed to be the leader of the coven, she does this glamour spell and transforms her entire body into the body of one of the other witches so that she can trick a love interest into sleeping with her.
Nice. Yeah, actually, this is another one that I did see, not when it came out because I wasn't interested in it when it came out. I actually saw it when Kai showed me this because this is another movie from the 90s that she really liked. So I'm familiar with it, but not as much as I ordinarily would be, I guess.
I wasn't allowed to watch it in high school because, at the time I was more of a good Christian girl who wasn't supposed to talk about witchcraft.
Right. And this was framed as like super goth. They're all in black with lots of makeup. The poster, it's iconic with the dark clouds and the lightning and all that stuff. They are, I'm sorry to inform you if you didn't know already, they are working on a reboot of this.
Oh God.
How that will work exactly, I don't know, because this...
Tell me this is an April Fool's joke.
I wish it was. If it is, then Blumhouse Productions, which they've done a bazillion movies, including The Invisible Man, that's out now on digital because the movie theaters are out of commission. I would definitely recommend people check that out. They're really committed to this April Fool's joke, if that's the case. But yeah, so it feels like one of those things that's so 90s that making it now just is already a huge mistake. Like there is no way to really update that. But then again, they have a Sabrina show on Netflix that was a huge 90s thing, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, if we're going to go into 90s witches. So we'll see.
But the Sabrina series that of today is very different than our Melissa Joan Hart, pop culture version.
Which makes me wonder how The Craft is going to be different. How The Craft is going to be different. Like, are they going to lighten the tone? Or are they going to, how are they going to update
They're going to wear
that?
pink like Legally Blonde.
Yeah, it's going to be like Mean Girls, but with magic, probably.
Yeah. Mean Girls, but make it illusion.
Yeah, exactly. Mean Magic Girls.
Mean Magic Girls. I love it. Oh my God.
There you go, Blumhouse. You could send your check to the Crooked
Royalty
Table.
check to Crooked Table.
Productions, yeah.
Okay, I can't stop laughing now.
The Craft. Well, since I feel like I had a bunch of witch ones that I could bring up, I'm trying to veer away mostly away from like full on fantasy world. So obviously things like Stardust, which is a great movie. Obviously The Wizard of Oz, and in movies that are like full on like in a fantastical world. I'm trying to sort of veer away from, because I feel like that's not only just a magic movie, that's just a fantasy movie. Like the whole everything about it is magic. You know what I mean? It's not magic in our world. Right. A shout out to Return to Oz for like traumatizing me as a child too. So I'm going to go, since we're sticking with 90s witches. Well, first of all, I want to mention The Witches from, I guess it's 1990 or 1989. Like it's right on the cusp there at 90, which I hadn't seen until I think a few years ago. And it's actually really creepy. I mean, I'm a 30-something-year-old man, and it's actually really well done. And they're doing a remake, reboot, whatever of that too, with Anne Hathaway in the Angelica Houston role. I don't know how that's going to go. But at
least Anne Hathaway's a good actress.
She is.
I mean, can Hollywood please come up with a new idea? Do we have to remake everything?
Seriously, it's kind of frustrating at this point, and the industry is obviously suffering as a result. I mean, most of the things we're talking about are either spawning sequels, remakes, reboots, or what have you. And The Witches is no exception, but it's also the practical effects that they do in that movie, the makeup and like the stop motion and that kind of the puppetry involved is really cool. And it's an art form that's kind of lost today. And I have another witch one that I want to bring up, but I wanted to see if you wanted to throw another one out first. Do you have any more? Okay, good. So I'll stick with 90s witches, and I have to bring up Hocus Pocus because
hell yeah.
It's classic movie, and
Amok.
they are working on a sequel for that, but I think that they're going to try and bring the original people back. It's unclear right now. I hope if they...
Well, I mean, all three of the characters said that they're in.
Yeah, Bette Midler is
they've said it multiple times.
Yeah, very up for it.
So what are we waiting for? Come on, Hollywood, get it together.
Right. Plus, they're wearing lots of makeup and hair, so you don't even necessarily have to like set it much later because obviously the actresses have aged. You can just kind of doll them up in the characters and then those outfits more and pretend that not as much time has passed if they decide to go that route. It's unclear how they're going to work that. But that movie was just like, it's one of the go-to, I think, family-friendly Halloween movies that I watched a lot as a kid. And it's just the whole tone of it, like everything, it used that line perfectly. So just like something like The Witches or Return to Oz, where it's scary enough for kids, but not like traumatizing. Well, Return to Oz was traumatizing, but like it's scary in like a kid way. But then when you grow up and you watch it, you look back, it still holds up. And even the scary, air quote, scary elements are just, they're more like fun, spooky. I'm always telling to my daughter when we're walking around like on a Target, like around Halloween or whatever, and all the decorations there. Like I don't want her to be like grow up and be like super scared and jumpy with every little thing. So I go over to her, I show her like, you know, the decorations. Like, look, honey, look, it's just a decoration. It's spooky, it's fake or whatever. And I think there's that fun element of Halloween where it's not gory and it's not like it's not grotesque or overdone, but it's the scares, air quote, Disney scares are there enough that when you're a little kid, it's really effective. And when you're grown up, you can still watch it without feeling embarrassed or anything like that. Clearly you got all excited when I brought up Hocus Pocus. What are your thoughts on Hocus Pocus?
Oh, I absolutely love it. And one of the words I learned last year that was like going viral was spoopy. And it's internet slang that stands for something that is spooky, but also comical or cute.
Yeah.
And that's actually my favorite types of illusions or pranks is ones that, it might make you jump for a second, but you're still going to come away with it feeling lighthearted, feeling good about it. Like you're not going to be upset after it's over.
Right.
So, and that's definitely how I feel about Hocus Pocus. I absolutely loved that movie. I mean, there were elements of it that were just so ridiculous, but that's what made it fun. And there was as a child, there was a little bit of fear to it, but it was done in such a way that I couldn't help but walk away singing "There's a Spell on You."
Right. Exactly. And not only that, like that, there's a lot of really kind of adult humor in there. There's a few lines that are very much like, he's like, "Oh, I'm looking for, what do you got? Like the bus driver, I'm thinking. He's like, "Oh, what do you need? What do you want? What are you looking for?" Or whatever. And he's like, I desire children. And he's like, "Oh, it might take me a couple of tries, but I'll," like, there's a lot of like, there's like sexual humor in this kid's movie. And it's, props to Disney for slipping that through there, because I feel like now kids, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, now kids movies are so sanitized and safe that it's either like Pixar, which is one of the rare examples where they actually do not necessarily push the envelope as far as like, sexual humor or anything that's inappropriate for kids, but like they challenge kids with their imagery, with their ideas, by making them think and making them see things in a new way. So it's either like Pixar or Laika, who did like Coraline, movies like that, which are truer to the kinds of kids movies, from the 80s and 90s. Or it's like Trolls and Sing and just like Minions and shit like that. I feel like there's no middle ground. It's just too many.
Yeah,
of them.
they definitely had a lot more innuendo in the films of our childhood. But that's why, today we're trying to figure out what Elsa's sexuality is.
Right. That's true.
Like, is she a lesbian? Is she not a lesbian? Well, we don't have any idea because they took away all the innuendo.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. It's like, just get some representation if you're going to do it. And Disney's been, since we're on that topic, Disney's been really half-assing that too. Like every movie, they're like, it's our first gay in a Disney or a Marvel or a Star Wars. And it's like, there's because there was the whole big thing with The Rise of Skywalker, which I talk about now way too often on this podcast, for a movie that I ultimately don't think is really that good, even though it is Star Wars, and I do love Star Wars, and I did pre-order the Blu-ray, and I will watch it. Objectively, it's not a very good movie, so it's like not really super defensible. But their whole thing was that, the first same-sex, whatever, in first LGBT representation in Star Wars, and it's like two women hug at the end for like literally a second. Or things like that. It's just that doesn't count nowadays, especially. It's like, come on. I mean, Marvel, I'll give them the whole there's a scene in Endgame that's more explicitly someone who's gay and talking about going on a date and things like that. But anyway, we're going again on a tangent.
That was before Disney owned it.
Which one?
The Marvel scene in Endgame.
Yeah.
They put that in before Disney owned it. So we still can't say that Disney's being honest about this kind of stuff.
Well, even like going back to early Marvel, like our first Iron Man movie, he like straight up like hooks up with like reporters, and it's like very innuendo. Like Iron Man is a player back in the day, drinking and like clearly like, the playboy, what is the genius playboy, genius billionaire playboy philanthropist or whatever that he says in Avengers. Like it's very obvious that he's like Iron Man fucks basically in the first Iron Man. Like and then once Disney really took over, it's just like, nope, he's a nice family man. He settles down.
We're gonna clean it up.
Yeah, it's
April
like
Fools,
Mickey Mouse
really
is on top of
playboy.
this. It's like we need to clean it up so we can put it in and we can have an attraction with Robert Downey Jr. in it, and people won't be like, "Hey, that guy fucks," to their kids, So it's it's just I think we're really looking back. A lot of our choices are like 90s, and I think you were seeing how different these kinds of movies are today. Now, witch and magic movies, for the most part, are either like too blockbustery, like what is that? Oz the Great and Powerful, that's from several years ago, which is not really good either. Or they're like
just threw up on the screen.
Yeah. Or that's the Oz is also one of those like bazillion fantasy, like Alice in Wonderland style, with all the, like you were saying, all the CG stuff.
Yeah, but at least Alice in Wonderland was a good movie.
It's okay. It's better than every, like most of the movies that came after it that kind of aped the style. But it's either like that style magic fantasy thing, or it's like The Witch, which I talked about on this podcast. I don't remember, like last month, earlier this year. I'm pretty sure it was this year and not 4 million years ago, before the dark times that we're in now. But super, again, a movie that's super dark and intense and not at all for children. But did you have any other choices? Which was wizard magic that you wanted to bring up while we're on the topic?
Not really. I think we've I think we've covered a lot.
Cool. I know we did talk a couple other things. I know that we did bring up in our chat that we wanted to at least throw a shout out or shade to. We did mention the Blair Witch Project, which I still honestly haven't seen because it seemed dumb to me as a kid, and everything I've heard about it since then reinforces that. And I've asked Kai, I'm like, did you see that? She's like, yeah. I'm like, was it any good? She's like, no. I'm like, okay. Good to know. I don't need to waste my time.
It's the greatest April Fool's joke of Hollywood.
It is. It really is. The fact that it's worth mentioning because it is technically a witch movie, and because it was, I don't know if it's still one of the most profitable productions of all time, but it was made for basically nothing and earned, I don't know, 120 million or something like that domestically, like some insane number considering that it's 3 people with a camera in the woods. It just kicked off a whole phenomenon and everything. But like you said, the way that was marketed at the very dawn, the very like advent of the internet becoming more popularized, where everybody, like, even when that came out in 99, I think I was just now at that point starting to get into, AOL keywords and all that other crap, chat rooms and shit like that in the late 90s. But yeah, I did not see it. Did you see Blair Witch Project when it came out? And what are your thoughts?
I did see it, not when it first came out, but a little bit later. And, it was touted almost like it was a documentary, and people legit believed, I mean, it's been several years now, so spoiler, people legit believed that the characters in the movie were actually dead. And the people that were in the film had to sign paperwork that they would not try to do any roles for a while because they really wanted to carry out the illusion that these people were killed in this crockumentary that we were led to believe was legit. And there was an era about it, or about it that was like, is it real? Is it fake? Is it a hoax? Like, you couldn't really completely tell.
You have to see it for yourself. Yeah.
You see it for yourself. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, whenever you did find out that these actors are are alive and well, it almost made me mad. Like, okay, then why did they let this belief continue for so long that these people were actually dead?
Right. Well, I mean, would you have preferred to to have it confirmed after the fact that you had just watched a snuff film? Like, what is the alternative?
Don't make the movie. Don't watch the movie. I don't know.
Well, that's what I've opted for the last 20 years. See?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the truth is there's no good way to handle it. Especially since, like I said, the marketing of it seemed to be that they wanted it to feel like it was real. But the fact that we didn't find out till much, much later whether or not it was real, that bothers me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that too, that there was a backlash of sorts with a lot of people feeling that way, like kind of.
And something like that could never work out today, because what's going to happen as soon as a film like that comes out? They're going to have a Facebook fan page of everybody trying to figure out where the hell these people are, if they're legit dead. It'll turn into a life of its own. So I guess the only time they could have done something like that was back then, but I don't see something like that being successful today.
Yeah, no, that was exactly the point I was going to make, that because the internet was about to explode, that it literally is like, oh, we got to get this. I don't know if you invented the term crockumentary, but I love that. So I hope that is.
No, I didn't coin that. I stole it.
That's good. That's really cool. I like it. They think they were like, the window's closing, the internet's about to blow up, we need to get this movie out now, because you're right.
Pull the wool over their eyes immediately.
Exactly. If they did it now, all the actors would have Twitter accounts, and it would be
and IMDb pages.
Right. Exactly. It would never happen. So I did make sure we threw out Blair Witch, literally threw it out, because it's apparently a crock of shit.
It's garbage. Because it's garbage.
And I wanted to tip the hat to, I know I said I was keeping Fantasy Worlds out of it, but the Harry Potter franchise, which coincidentally enough, this year we're focusing on releasing an episode on each of the Harry Potter movies. Starting in, hopefully by the time you hear this, the first one will be up. I still have to edit it, but that will be up by the end, the last hours of March probably, and then go every month going forward. We're going to have an episode on every film in that franchise. So that'll be
at least some of the Harry Potter movies do have clean pranks in them.
They do. They have a whole joke shop full of the clean pranks. And fireworks that turn into dragons and all kinds of crazy shit. But that's a really fun and a really fun magic franchise in general. And it has that element of kind of the best children's or family stories where it starts in the real world and then it kind of ushers you into the magical world, sort of like Wizard of Oz and things like that. So there's an element of, of everyman-ness to Harry Potter, where he just gets plucked out of this and realizes he's got this legacy. And I don't need to tell people what Harry Potter's about, obviously, but yeah. So that's I wouldn't feel comfortable mentioning magic and wizards and witches and stuff without throwing Harry Potter out there, especially since it tied so nicely into this year's theme.
So that is your theme of 2020 is Harry Potter?
2020 is the franchise we're doing. So last year, because The Rise of Skywalker was coming out in December, I randomly, one of the people that I wanted to have on the show picked The Phantom Menace, and it was lining up perfectly to happen, I think, in May. So I counted out the months, and I had already done a Force Awakens episode with Kai that I just kind of basically reposted and kind of re-edited a little bit. And that ended up perfectly fitting into the rest of 2019. So now I was like, well, every year we should do one episode a month focusing on a different movie in a franchise. So last year was Star Wars, this year Harry Potter. Next year I have a few ideas, but we'll see how that goes. And it kind of gives the line a little bit of a through line. And I think this year, so far, the way 2020 is going, we could all use a little escape to Hogwarts.
Yes, absolutely. But I will say, just as a personal favor to me, I wouldn't get mad at all if you did not include anything from Fantastic Beasts.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm stopping with Harry Potter. Yeah. No, I don't want anything to do with that.
Stand.
Kai and I saw the first one, And we were like, well, that wasn't very good at all.
Yeah.
And then the thing I remember the most is that I think after we saw it, it was in Hyde Park here in Tampa. We went to Goody Burger, and I think that was the most memorable part of the day was the burger. The movie I've kind of forgotten mostly about, except for like scary pasty faced Johnny Depp at the end. So I still haven't seen the second one, and I don't really have any interest in doing it. And I think when I brought this up on Facebook before that I was doing Harry Potter, I think people were like, don't do Fantastic Beasts. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. That's like doing Star Wars and then doing the Ewok movies or something like that. We're not going that far.
Good.
So is there anything else about magic or April Fools or any of this that you want to mention or throw out there? It doesn't have to be a movie choice, just on this theme.
I just want to say that if you are going to prank anybody, make sure it's in good humor. Don't be a jerk. Don't do something mean. Just
You're 6
be
feet
nice
away the whole time.
6 feet away, and be nice and wash your hands.
Yeah, exactly. We could all use a little magic. So hopefully, people listening to this, I echo what Ashley just said. Also, stay inside. Let's try and get over this as soon as possible and get back to enjoying the rest of the world outside. In the meantime, good opportunity for people like Ashley to start podcasts. So if you want to join this podcast and talk movies with me or reach out to either of us on social media, Ashley, where can people find you?
I am famous Ashley Grant all over social.
And that's the Bloggy Friends show. You said bloggyfriends.com?
Bloggyfriends.com, yep. Awesome.
So definitely go look for Ashley's first episode, which will be up by the time this episode posts. Putting her on the spot there.
Oh my God. Like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, exactly. And the famous Ashley Grant, thank you so much for coming back on here for, I guess, the fourth time. See, now I have to do research and find out what that other time was.
I've got to look up my my archives too. But thanks for that, Rob Fox. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And we'll have to figure out what we're going to talk about next time. Maybe another themed one, maybe a movie. We'll have to let me know. And if you ever want me on your show, we could do some kind of a crossover event or something like that, and put that together.
Yes, I'm in. I'm going to hold you to that.
Awesome. I'm going to hold you to that. I got the recording. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.
If you're interested in joining me on the show to chat about one of your favorite films, head on over to crookedtable.com/guest. Or you can consider supporting the show at patreon.com/crookedtable. Of course, you can always find more podcasts, reviews, videos, and other movie-related goodies over at crookedtable.com. Until next time, this has been the Crooked Table Podcast, and I've been Rob.
This has been a production of crookedtable.com. All rights reserved.
CROOKED.